Okay, Rabbi say, this is where things start to get exciting. This is where things start to get exciting because this is the beginning of the conquest of Eretz Yisrael. You might remember that at the very end of Perek Hey, Yehoshua is presented by with this malach that comes to him and tells him, um, "Shal na'alecha, shal na'alcha me'al reglecha." Take your shoe off your feet, or your foot, because this place that you are standing on is Admas Kodesh. Shuva Yas Yehoshua Ken. Yehoshua does this. He does what the malach tells him to do. Very similar to the encounter that Moshe Rabbeinu has in Parsha Shmos, the beginning of Moshe's extraction of the Jewish people from Mitzrayim. We pointed out that this malach, when he shows up at Yehoshua, Yehoshua wants to know: Are you with us or are you against us? Which sounded like a very peculiar thing to say. And we quoted from the Malbim who explains that no, Yehoshua is asking, which way are you facing? Are you coming to charge us with the mission of conquering Eretz Yisrael, or are you running the army? Which way are you facing? Right? Are you the general at the front of the army, or are you coming to inspire us to be the generals in front of the army? And it seems to be that what this malach is coming to do is to inspire Yehoshua to be the general. He's not fighting the battle. He is coming to inspire Yehoshua to do so. And in that way, Yehoshua is different from Moshe Rabbeinu. Yehoshua is different from Moshe because Moshe tells the malach, take a hike. Right? That's Parshas Mishpatim, Parshas Kisisa. There's different indications of Moshe telling the malach, take a hike. I'm not interested in you. Moshe is the malach. He doesn't need anybody else to do the job. We pointed out that Moshe and Yehoshua are alike in that they have reached some level of being beyond the point that they are capable of choosing to fail. That these things are now no longer possibilities for either of them, although Moshe is a madrega that is significantly higher than Yehoshua. So Yehoshua is now being inspired and infused with the capacity, the capability to lead this army to go to battle. And the sixth parak begins this story, the story of Yehoshua going to battle. And we're going to read some of this inside because there's a lot to take note of. There's a lot to understand. The pasuk says as follows. Starts off with Yericho sogeres misugeres mipnei bnei Yisrael. What does that mean? Sogeres misugeres. Closed and closed, right? Right. It's a double language of being shut, of being closed. Mipnei bnei Yisrael. So there's two ways of reading the word mipnei, which is in the face of or because of, right? Mipnei bnei Yisrael, as a result of bnei Yisrael, or in the face of bnei Yisrael. Both are true to a certain extent. We'll get back to it. Ein yotze ve'ein ba. No one goes in, no one goes out. So the city of Yericho is impenetrable. And Yeshua's job is to conquer an impenetrable city, which sounds difficult. That's not something that one would ordinarily expect. So, okay. Says Hashem to Yehoshua, "Vayomer Hashem el Yehoshua, Re'ei nasati bi'alcha es Yericho ve'es malka." See, I'm going to place into your hands the city of Yericho and its king, Giborei Achayil, all of the soldiers. How are you going to do this? You are going to surround the city, all of the people of battle. Hakif esa'ir pam echas. You're going to surround the city one time. And this you're going to do for 6 consecutive days. So you're going to surround the city once a day, every day for 6 days. V'shiva kohanim yis'u, shiva shofros hayovlim lifnei ha'aron. You're going to have 7 kohanim that are carrying 7 shofros hayovlim. What are shofros hayovlim? Shofros that are used for Yovel, which is peculiar. What exactly is the shofar that's used for Yovel? Is there a shofar that's used for Yovel? Yes. There's a shofar that is used for Yovel. There is a mitzvah midaraisa that in order to declare the Yovel year, the Jubilee year, after 7 Shemitah cycles, the 50th year is the Yovel year, and you blow a shofar in order to herald the Yovel year. When do you blow that shofar? So this is important to know. When do you blow the shofar? Show it to you inside. This is in Parshas Bahar. Here we go. You're going to count seven cycles of 7 years. It's going to be 49 years in total. And then you're going to blow a shofar trua in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, when? Yom Kippurim. On Yom Kippur, you're going to blow the shofar. Tavir shofar b'chol artzachem. Throughout Eretz Yisrael, you're going to blow the shofar. It's machlokes in the Gaonim, but according to one major school of thought amongst the Gaonim, this is the reason that we blow shofar at the end of Yom Kippur. It is reminiscent of the shofar trua that was blown every 50 years on the Yovel year on Yom Kippur. Now we don't blow on Yom Kippur; we blow it on Motzei Yom Kippur, but it is akin to that sounding of the shofar. So that's what we're doing here. We are invoking something of the Yovel year of Yom Kippur, or Yom Kippur of the Yovel year. That's what we are invoking here. Keep that in mind. And this is going to be Lifnei Ha'aron, in front of the Aron, which we've seen has done some pretty cool stuff up until now. Split stop the waters of the Yarden, and has carried those who are carrying it. This is going to be Bayom Hashvi, on the 7th day. Tasovu esayir sheva pamim. You're going to surround the city 7 times. Va'kohanim yiskeu b'shofaros, and the kohanim are going to blow on the shofar. Now, before we pointed out that they're going to be carrying the Shiva Shofar Sayovlim, and they are going to sound what sound? What sound are they going to be sounding? Yitkeu. What does Yitkeu mean? Tkiya. Yitkeu b'shofros. They're going to be sounding a tkiya with the shofros. Keep that in mind for a moment. V'hayam b'mshoch b'keren hayovel, when they will draw out the keren hayovel, the horn of the yovel. There's a Kriyan Ksiv here that we have time. We'll try to explain. It is written b'shom achem. We read it ke shom achem, as you hear it. Ke shom achem as kol shofar, the sound of the shofar. Yariu kol ha'am trua gedola. Everybody is going to blow what? A trua gedola, a big trua. So not a tkiya, but a trua. V'nafla choma sa'ir tachteha, and the city walls will crumble beneath it. Va'alu ha'am ish negdo, and everybody will then be able to enter the city, crossing over where they were standing. That's Hashem's plan. So you're going to surround the city every single day, once, carrying the Aron, and carrying the shofars. Day number 7, you're going to surround the city 7 times. The Kohanim are going to blow a kia, sounds, and everybody else then is going to blow a trua gedola, big trua, and then the city walls are going to crumble. Now, we do something similar to this, at least the surroundings. When do we do this? Hakafas, right? Or rather Hashanas. And then on Hoshana Rabbah, we circle 7 times, right? Each day of Sukkot we circle once, and then the final day of Sukkot we circle 7 times. Very clearly developed from this practice. Okay, this is the plan. Vayikra Yehoshua ben Nun el HaKohanim. Yehoshua calls the Kohanim. Vayomer aleim. He says to them, "Su'u es Aaron habris. Take the Ark of the Covenant. V'shiva Kohanim yisu shiva shofros hayavlim lifnei Aaron Hashem. 7 Kohanim are going to take 7 shofros in front of the Aaron. Vayomer el ha'am. And he says to the people, Ivru v'sobu es ha'ir. Pass by and surround the city. V'achalutz ya'avor lifnei Aaron Hashem, and the chalutz, those are the first group, will pass in front of the Aaron. Vayhi ke'amar Yehoshua ela'am v'shiva kohanim nosim shiva shofros hayovlim lifnei Hashem avru v'sak'u b'shofros. When Yehoshua says we're going to go and do this, v'Aaron bris Hashem holech acharayim, then the Aaron will be behind him, right? Meaning everybody is going to, the Aaron is going to be standing there, and everybody is going to pass by the Aaron. V'achalutz holech lifnei HaKohanim tokei shofros, and then the first group is going to walk in front of the Kohanim, who are the sounders of the shofar. V'ama'asef holech acharei ha'aron, and the ma'asef, that's those bringing up the rear, they are going to walk behind the Aaron, haloch v'takah b'shofros, as they sound their shofros. V'sa'am tziva Yehoshua lemar, and to the nation Yehoshua says, Lo tariu, don't sound any truas. That's their job on the 7th day. On the 7th time, they're all going to sound a trua. You don't do anything. Velo sashmiu es kolchem, do not say a word. Don't sound the shofar. Don't make your voices heard at all. Velo yetzei mipichem davar, and don't bring anything out of your mouth. Total silence. Ad yom amri aleichem hariu v'hariosav, until I tell you to blow the shofar, and then you're going to blow. Don't say anything. The silent march around the city. V'yasev Aaron Hashem es ha'ir, hakef pam echas, and the Aaron of Hashem surrounds the city once. V'yavo hamachaneh, comes the camp. V'yalinu b'machaneh, and then they rest in the camp. So this whole thing happens. V'yashkem Yehoshua b'boker v'yisu HaKohanim es Aaron Hashem. Yehoshua gets up in the morning, the Kohanim take the Aaron. V'shiva Kohanim nosim shiva shofros hayovlim lifnei Aaron Hashem holchim haloch v'saku b'shofros. They are walking, they're going to blow the shofar. V'chalutz holech lifneihem. You have the first group that's going in front, v'ama'asef, and the those that are bringing up the rear, holech acharei Aaron Hashem, they're walking behind Aaron. Haloch v'saku b'shofros, as they are sounding the shofros. V'yasovu es ha'ir b'yom hasheni pam achas, and they do this again on the 2nd day. V'yashova machanan, and then come back to the camp. Ko asu sheshes yom, and this is what they did for 7 days. Vayhi b'yom hashvi, it was on the 7th day. V'yashkimu ka'alos hashachar, and they woke up around dawn. V'yasovu es ha'ir, and they surrounded the city. Kam mishpat hazeh sheva pamim, this way 7 times. Rak b'yom ahu, but on that day, savu es ha'ir sheva pamim. They surrounded it 7 times. The only difference was, now it's 7. The 7th time, the Kohanim sounded a tkiya with their shofar. And Yehoshua says to the people, blow the trua. Because Hashem is giving you the city. And this city will now be a cherem. What does cherem mean? Prohibited, right? You're not allowed to engage with it at all. Cherem hi. V'chol asher ba'ala Hashem, everything in it belongs to Hashem. Everything in it belongs to Hashem. The only thing that you are going to do in the city is rak rachav hazona tichya. He v'chol asher itabavais. Remember Rachav? Save her. Save Rachav. Ki hechba'asa es hamalachim asher shalachnu, because she hid the malachim that we sent earlier. We had to deal with her. Rak atem shimru min acherim, but be very careful because of the scherim, because of this ban. Pen tacharimu ulekachtem min acherim. in case you will transgress this and take anything from the city. Also, this will be very bad. If you take this, will influence and impact the entirety of the Machane. Everything here is belonging to Hashem. All the silver, the gold, the copper, everything belongs to Hashem. Otzar Hashem Yavo. It goes into the property of Hashem. Vayara ha'am vayiskeu b'shofaros. What does it mean, vayara? Blow a trua. Right? That's the lashon of trua. Vayiskeu b'shofaros. And they sounded the shofaros. They blew tekiyos and the shofaros. So you have the tekiyos and you have the truas. Vayikishma ha'am eskol shofar, when everybody hears the sound of the shofar. Vayariu ha'am trua gedola, that's when they did the trua gedola. Vatipol ha'chama tachta, and the wall crumbles. Vayal ha'am ha'ira, and the nation goes up into the city. Ish negdo, everybody from exactly where they were surrounding the city. Walls crumble, everybody just walks in. Vayil kedu es ha'ir, and they conquered the city. Vayacharimu eskol asher ba'ir, they declared a chirim, prohibition on everything in the city. Me'ish va'ad isha minar va'ad zaken va'ad shar v'aseh v'chamar lifi charev, and everybody that was allowed they destroyed. Everybody that was there was executed by the army. L'shneim ha'anashim hameraglim as haaretz amar Yehoshua, and to the two people that Yehoshua had originally sent. This is Kalev and Pinchas that Yehoshua had originally sent into the city. He said, "Bo beis ha'isha zona, go to Rachav's house. Ve'otzi misham es ha'isha ve'eskol asher la, take out her and everything that belongs to her. Kasher nishbatem la, as you swore to her. Fulfill your promise." Now, fascinatingly, these two people are referred to with a new name. They've been called Meraglim, they've been called Malachim, and now they are called Narim, youths. Rashi is going to have a comment on this. We'll see if we have time for it. Vayavo ha-na'arim ha-meraglim, comes along these young spies. V'yotziu es Rachav ve'es Avia ve'es Ima ve'es Chav ve'es kol ha'shelah, takes out the mother, the father, the brothers, everything belongs to her. Ve'es kol mishpachasah hotziu, the whole family. Ve'yanichu michutz l'machane Yisrael, and takes them all out to the Jewish camp. Va'ir sarfu ba'ish v'chol asher ba, they burn the city to the ground. Everything valuable they took to the Otzar Beis Hashem, they took to belong to the property of Hashem. And once again, Yehoshua allows Rachav and her family and everything that she has to remain alive, and she settles amongst the Jewish people until this very day. Meaning Rachav is now included within the Jewish people. Because she hid those two spies, that Yehoshua had sent to spy to Yericho. Yehoshua takes an oath at this point in time. Arur ha'ish lifnei Hashem. Cursed is the person before Hashem. Asher yakum uvana es ha'ir hazos es Yericho. Anybody that will rebuild Yericho is cursed. Bivcharo yiyasdena uvitiro yatziv delasel. What is his curse? That he will pay with his firstborn if for laying the foundations, and with his youngest for putting up the doors. Meaning, if you do this, your children will die. That's the curse for rebuilding Yericho. Does this curse come true? Is this ever fulfilled? Yes. This is the backstory to Eliyahu. In Sefer Malachim, Eliyahu goes to comfort, to be Menachem Avel, to the person that does this. We'll get there. Vayihi Hashem es Yehoshua, Hashem is with Yehoshua, Vayihi Sham'o b'chol haaretz, and Yehoshua is heard of throughout the land. This is the story. There are many questions to ask. Many questions. Let's begin with, is this miraculous or is this natural? Certainly the walls coming down is miraculous, but conquering the city is warfare. So there seems to be a merger, some hybrid going on here. This miracle, fascinatingly, requires a tremendous amount of group participation, right? This is not like other miracles that happen in Chumash. Certainly not miracles that happen in the days of Moshe. Miracles that happen in the days of Moshe, Moshe lifts up his hands and lifts up his stick and the water split, and put the stick down and the waters close, and man comes from Shemayim for 40 years. No participation whatsoever. This requires a tremendous amount of participation. Now, this miracle is certainly significant. The walls of Yericho are going to come crumbling down, but it requires the entirety of the army and a 7-day period for this all to take place. Meaning, to invoke this particular miracle requires Klal Yisrael being part of it. They are creating this miracle. This isn't stam supernatural. It's not that Hashem is saying, don't worry, walls come crumbling down. Could Hashem have done that? Sure. But for some reason, that's not the way that this works. There are a number of very, very deep themes that run through this, and we're going to take probably the next 2 or 3 weeks working through many of these things. Because much of this finds expression and flavor in many of the things that we do. Firstly, we should take note of the sevens that are going on here. Now, 7, of course, is a particularly meaningful number in Yiddishkeit. 7, of course, being the days of the week. 6 days of work, and the 7th is Shabbos. That is probably the first majorly significant number that the Torah speaks about explicitly. V'yivarech Elokim es Yom HaShvi'i. Kodesh Baruch Hu makes Yom HaShvi'i, the 7th day, something special, something different, a day of bracha. Okay. There is also a very deep theme of shofar. Shofar trua and shofar tekiah. These are 2 things that are going on here. Now, we of course talk about this a lot when it comes to Rosh Hashanah time and Yom Kippur of Yovel. The theme of Yovel is a strong theme here. There is the Bimshoch HaYovel. Yovel shows up in 3 contexts in Chumash. Yovel shows up as the Jubilee year. It shows up as well with, of course, here. And it also shows up, anybody want to hazard a guess? The pasuk is Bimshoch HaYovel Hema Ya'alu Bahar. What's that pasuk? Yeah, what about Matan Torah? At the end of the Matan Torah experience, so you might remember that throughout the Matan Torah experience, and whenever Klal Yisrael is surrounding the mountain, there is a prohibition of ascending the mountain. Bimshoch HaYovel Hema Yalu Bahar, when you sound the Yovel, then they can climb the mountain. So there is a permissibility that the Yovel introduces. You can now ascend the mountain when the Yovel is sounded. And we'll take a look at that pasuk in detail a little bit later. Bimshoch HaYovel Hema Yalu Bahar. So there is the Yovel of heralding the Shnas, the shofar that heralds the Shnas HaYovel. There's the shofar that allows you to ascend the mountain. And then there is the shofar that brings down the shofars HaYovlos that bring down the walls of Yericho. Tekiyas and truas, of course, we hear about first not in the context of the shofar of Rosh Hashanah. What do we first hear about the tekiyas and the truas? Tekiyas and truas are first spoken about in the context of Apparently this is calling me. Okay, that should work. The Tkiyas and Truas are first spoken about in the context of the Chatzot. What are the Chatzot? The silver trumpets that Moshe Rabbeinu makes. There are two sounds of the Chatzot. There is the Tkiya, and then there is the Trua. These are used for different things. V'tak'u bahem, when you sound the Tkiya, v'na'adu elecha kol ha'ida el pesach al moed, the Tkiya is the sound of gathering the people. Utkatem Trua, when you sound a Trua, what's going to happen? V'nas'u ha'machanos. People are going to begin traveling. So the Tkiya, the one long unbroken sound, that is the sound of gathering, of pulling together. The Trua is the lashon of breaking camp, breaking apart. Now this is also the lashon of what these verbs mean. When something is takua, what does takua mean? Stuck, planted, permanent, right? That's tkiya. What's the lashon of the word trua? What's the shorish of the word terua? So this will sound peculiar. Trua is ra. What is ra? Evil, bad, right? That's not really what ra means. It also means ra. But at its basic definition, the word trua means broken, fragmented. David HaMelech refers to this understanding in Tehillim. It's in a number of other places as well. But the pasuk says, "Tero'im b'shevet barzel." Tero'im, to shatter them. B'shevet barzel, with an iron rod, to shatter, to fragment, to break into lots and lots of pieces. The Gra explains that ra, evil, is by definition that which is fragmented. The more fragmented something is, the more capacity it can be evil. That which is unified is good, and that which is fragmented is bad. Lemashal, anything that is fragmented struggles to sustain itself. The only way that it can sustain itself is by having points of unity. So imagine, the mafia. So the mafia are bad people. They're bad people. They do bad things. They break people's lives. They destroy the world. They are ra. But if the mafia would do to each other what they do to everybody else, if they would, kill and steal and rape and pillage everybody else, themselves the same way that they do to everybody else, what would happen to the mafia? No more mafia, right? You cannot be completely fragmented. Because if you are, then you don't exist. So anything that is ra, anything that is fragmented, comes to some limit, right? Otherwise, it no longer exists. This, by the way, we spoke about this once in Shul. It's a machlokas between the Vilna Gaon and the Ramak Moshe Cordovera, whether there is something called a 50th level of tumah. Meaning, is it possible for something to be totally defiled, totally evil? So the Gra held that it is impossible. It is impossible for something to be completely fragmented. It's like a limit that tends to infinity. You can't get there, right? You can be more and more and more fragmented, but if something would be infinitely fragmented, it would no longer exist, because then it just doesn't exist anymore. Something that's totally evil. Now that's important here, because we are going to be invoking the trua, the shattering of things, and we are going to be invoking the pulling together of things. What exactly we are breaking, what exactly we are putting together. So those themes are very strong themes within this story as well. One final theme just to take note of before we go further, and that is circles. The notion of circling. So circling is something that comes up throughout the Chumash in very deep and very profound ways. The notion of being makif, of surrounding. The first time that we have a whiff of this, of something surrounding, is it's a famous medrash. I'll give you a clue. It has something to do with Yaakov Avinu. Yeah, the stones. Say what? So he puts Vayasim Merash Esav. He puts these stones around his head, right? And then they all combine into one stone, which the Medrash is deriving this moment of the stones coming together from the end of Yaakov's life. What's the very end of Yaakov's life is? Tells his children, gather round me, just before he dies. Now, by the way, that movement of gathering around Yaakov Avinu, that gathering around of Yaakov Avinu, is in the Rambam. The Rambam paskins that lahalacha, that medrash. Where does the Rambam paskin that lahalacha? So this is important to know. The Rambam paskins this. Where is our Rambam here? Halacha Mishnah Torah. You see this in the Rambam in Hilchos Kriya Shema, I believe in the second parak. Hold on a moment. Yeah, sorry, the second halacha, the first parak. We'll take away the commentaries here just to make it a little easier to see. Hakari Kriya Shema, somebody that reads the Shema, Shogomer Pasuk Rishon, when he finishes the first Pasuk, Omer Balachash Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olam Vayed. You say quietly, you whisper Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olam Vayed. Where's that Pasuk, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olam Vayed? Where's that Pasuk? Everybody knows that. Where's the Pasuk? It's a trick question. It's not a Pasuk. Nowhere in all of Tanakh does the words Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olam Vayed come up at all. Not there. It's nowhere in Tanakh. If you look at Shema in Tanakh, you'll see the pasuk in Parshas Vayeschanan. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad ve'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. There's no Baruch Shem. So the Rambam tells you. Says the Rambam, V'lama korin kain. Why do we say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusa? Masorus hibiyadan. We have a tradition. When Yaakov was about to die in Mitzrayim, he gathered his children. He commanded them about the Yichud Hashem, the unity of Hashem. And in the way of Hashem that Avram and Yitzchak, his father, went before him. And he said to them, Banai, my children, Shema yesh bachem psolas. Maybe there's something wrong with one of you. Somebody that doesn't believe in monotheism as I do. This is the same as Moshe Rabbeinu. Warn the Jewish people, Pen yesh bachem isha isha. Is there somebody here that doesn't believe in God? That doesn't recognize the truth of monotheism? Anu kulam ve'amrula. Everybody answered to Yaakov when he asked them, are you all monotheists? They said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's what they said to him. What did that mean? Shema Yisrael. Says the Rambam Kolomar, That is to say, Shema mimenu, listen from us. Avinu Yisrael, our father, Yisrael, Yaakov. Shema Yisrael, listen, Yaakov. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, we are monotheists. That's what the pasuk means. Shema Yisrael, listen, Yisrael, Yaakov. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Pasach Hazakin ve'ana, Yaakov, the elder, just before his death, then expressed Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. That was his response to Shema Yisrael. His response to Shema Yisrael was Baruch Shem. Lefichach, therefore, Nahagu Kol Yisrael Lomar Shavach Zeh Sheshibach Ba Yisrael Hazaken Achar Pasuk Zeh. We have the custom of doing this whenever we say the Shema. Yaakov Avinu was the one that said these words first. We are invoking the bracha of Yaakov to Hashem, the praise of Hashem. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed, which means Baruch is his name of the honor of his kingdom forever. Literally, what we're saying is that which Bnei Yisrael have just declared should be something that is appreciated in the world. Shema Yisrael, listen Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, we are monotheists. The response to that is, it should be real and palpable and tangible in the world. That's Kavod Malchuso, the honor of his kingdom. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be the king of the world. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. It should be real. Make it real. That's the goal. That is the goal. Okay. Now, let's make sure that this is working here. Good. Okay. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. Now, something fascinating to take note of. After this moment, Yaakov dies, and his children do what? They carry him to Eretz Yisrael, right? How do they carry him to Eretz Yisrael? Yeah. How great is that procession? Super, super great. So great, in fact, that when the Jewish people begin traveling in the Midbar, at the beginning of Sefer Shmos, the pasuk says, "Ish al diglo be'osos leveis havasam yachanu b'nei Yisrael." The Jewish camp in the Midbar is going to travel. Mineged saviv la'ohel ma'id yachanu. They're going to camp. How? Surrounding the Mishkan. That's how they're going to camp, surrounding the Mishkan. Rashi tells us over here, be'osos leveis avosam, with the signs leveis avosam according to the house of their ancestors. Says Rashi, be'os shemasar lahem avi Yaakov, the way that Yaakov had given them, kshenasu mitzrayim, when they carried him from Mitzrayim. Meaning, Yaakov instituted the positions of each of his children around his body, carrying him to Eretz Yisrael. That is the way that the Jewish people are going to be camping and traveling for the entirety of their journey into Eretz Yisrael. Means that Yaakov is going to be carried. Yaakov is going to be carried from Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael, and a number of generations later, the Jewish people are going to carry the Mishkan from Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael. That's what the same procession is going to be taking place. The order of travel is set up by Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu decides who is going to march first, and Yaakov Avinu decides who is going to march last. Yaakov is going to be deciding exactly the order of this procession. And the same way that Yaakov, who is emblematic of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, that Yaakov is going to be that center focus, that notion of monotheism being at the center of the Jewish people, that is then zoomed out like a fractal, right, to the entirety of the Jewish people and the Mishkan at the center. We have another encircling that is very deeply related to this, which the Ramban points out in the Hagdama to Sefer Bamidbar. See if we have the Hagdamas here. Let's see. The Ramban points out that sorry, maybe the here we go. It says the Ramban at the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar, after the Torah is explained to you all of the Karbanos, that's in Vayikra, the Torah is going to tell you the story of Bamidbar. Mitzvahs shenitzavu be'inyan oil moed, the mitzvahs of the oil moed, how to engage with this thing called Mishkan. Ukvar hisir al tumas mikdash gedoshav ledoros, and the Torah in Vayikra has already told us about the way that the Mishkan is going to be treated with kedusha. V'ata yagbil ha Mishkan b'yosav b'midbar kasher higbil har Sinai b'yos hakavod sham, and there is going to be a surrounding manifestation of awe and reverence and encampment of the Mishkan, the same as Har Sinai. So there are concentric circles that are going around Yaakov, and concentric circles that are going around the Mishkan, and concentric circles that are going around Har Sinai. All of this circling is the same theme that is being carried through over and over again. The theme of we are aiming to coalesce around Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We are aiming to coalesce around Mishkan and Luchos and Aaron Habris. And we are coalescing around Har Sinai, the place of Matan Torah. All of these circles we are wrapping ourselves, the Jewish people, around a center point, a focal point. The Ramban points out that there are many parallels between the respect and reverence, the awe that is given to Har Sinai, to the place of Matan Torah, and the Mishkan, which is the portable Matan Torah. Now, Yerushalayim eventually becomes the resting place of the Mishkan as it is built into the Beis HaMikdash. Yerushalayim is referred to Harim Saviv La, with mountains that surround it. Yerushalayim is also surrounded. And then there are concentric circles that surround Yerushalayim likewise. So in the Midbar, there were three gradations of encampments. There was the Machane Shechina, where the Ohel Moed was, and the Machane Levia, which was the encampment of the Levium. And then there was the Machane Yisrael, which is where the rest of the people were. And those three gradations in Halacha find expression in Yerushalayim as well. Yerushalayim has a certain level of Kedusha, and Har HaBayis has an elevated level of Kedusha, and the Beis HaMikdash itself has an even higher level of Kedusha. And those three concentric circles of Kedusha find their expression as well in the Mishkan itself. You find the Ezras Yisrael, the area that everybody could enter, and then you have the area which is the Kodesh, that only the Kohanim can enter, and then the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which only the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur can enter. And all of these areas are surrounding each other. All of these areas are surrounding each other. And now we find that the Jewish people are surrounding Yericho. And one wonders, what are we doing there? The goal is eventually to surround Yerushalayim. That's the goal. But the first step of this seems to be surrounding Yericho. Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin points out in Dover Tzedek, we'll see if we have time to see this inside in a bit, but Tzadok HaKohen points out that the beginning of the conquest of Eretz Yisrael was Yericho, and the end of the conquest is Yerushalayim. When David conquers Yerushalayim, that is the end of the conquest. That is when Eretz Yisrael has been conquered. Yerushalayim is the last piece of Eretz Yisrael that is still under control of the 7 nations. What was the name of Yerushalayim up until that point in time? At least during this period of time, from Yehoshua until David. It was called the city of Yevus, because it was controlled by the Jebusites, right? Yevusim, the city of Yevus. That's the name of the city until David conquers the city of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim also, which is surrounded. And there needs to be a conquest of Yerushalayim. Now, what's interesting to point out is that the surrounding and conquest of Yericho breaks from the normative order. Most of the time, as we've noted, the order of surrounding is concentric circles, gradated circles. You have that which is in the middle, and then you have small circle surrounding and a larger circle around that and a larger circle around that. So even going up to Har Sinai, Moshe Rabbeinu was at the top of the mountain. You have Aaron and Nadav and Avihu and the Shivim Zekenim lower down on the mountain, and then the Jewish people surrounding the bottom of the mountain. Mishkan, you have Machane Shechina, Machane Leviah, and Machane Yisro. Yerushalayim, you have Beis HaMikdash, Har Habayis, Yerushalayim. Surrounding Yericho is different. How's it different? So the center is bad, that's true, is the focal point. But even the way that it is surrounded here is interesting. And the Psukim were very explicit about this. Where is the Aaron? So the Aaron is in line with everybody else. Everybody passes by the Aaron. The Jewish people here, fascinatingly, do not have a front and a back. They don't have an in and an out. This is all one long Congo line, like all around the city of Yericho. Now, there's a lot to speak about here. There's no layers, and it is impossible to determine. There's a chalutz and there's a ma'asef. There are people at the front and people at the rear, but it is impossible to determine exactly who is who. Because from one perspective, the people at the front, the tribe that is most frontwards, is behind the tribe that is last. Now, just to give identities to these tribes, because this is going to be important for exploration further, who's the tribe that goes first? Yehuda. Yehuda is always the one that goes first. And Dan is the one that goes at the back. Dan is the Ma'asef Kol HaMachanos. Dan is the one at the back. Now, it happens to be that this Machlokes Rishonim, if they traveled in a straight line in the Midbar, meaning, or they traveled surrounding the Mishkan still on 4 sides or some degree, but surrounding Yericho is where Dan and Yehuda are next to each other. It's the only time that Dan and Yehuda are next to each other. The Chalutz and the Ma'asef are next to each other. Yehuda is leading everything and Dan is in front of it. Now, the relationship between Dan and Yehuda is something that is deeply explored in many, many Sfarim. The first inkling to this, we'll just drop some breadcrumbs along the way. You might remember that Dan gets a fascinating shout out when Yaakov Avinu is just before Yaakov Avinu dies. Dan gets a fantastic shout out. What does Dan get just before Yaakov Avinu dies? So he's a snake, right? Dan is a snake. Yeah. Take a look at this. You memorized them, right? Birkas Yaakov, right? Here we go. Just by the way, this is the lashon of the pasuk. He'asfu, gather. Hitkabtzu, gather. Getting down to Dan. Dan yadinamo ka'achad shiftei Yisrael. Dan will judge his people ka'achad, as one, shiftei Yisrael. Right? Dan is the Maasef. He's bring up the rear. He's the one that unifies the Jewish people. Yehi Dan Nachash. He's a snake. Ali derech shififon ali orach. Hanoshech ikveisus v'yipol ruchva achar. We're not going to deal with that pasuk in particular right now, but I understand that the Nachash is a very, very deep theme, because Nachash is also that which is able to go around. There are many, many Gemaras that discuss the snake encircling. Nachash has very deep themes throughout Chumash, since throughout Tanakh, from the days of Adam and Chava. Again, breadcrumbs. Nachash is also the gematria of the word Mashiach. Nachash is Mashiach, and Rashi notes this in the next pasuk. This is the shout-out, Lishuascha kivisi Hashem. At the end of the bracha to Dan, Lishuascha kivisi Hashem. Why Lishuascha kivisi Hashem? Zog Zeder Rashi, says Rashi, Nisnavei sheyinakru plishtim es einav v'sofer loymar zachreni Hashem v'chazkeni achapam. He's davening for whom? Shimshon. Why? Because this is Shimshon. Does Rashi quote this here? The Medrash quotes this here. That Yaakov Avinu believed that Shimshon was going to be Mashiach. And then he saw how his eyes were poked out and that he was not going to be Mashiach. And all of the Mefarshim, everybody wants to know, what do you mean? He's not from Shevet Yehuda. How could he be Mashiach? What does that mean? No. There is a point in time that Dan and Yehuda are next to each other. There's a deep relationship between Dan and Yehuda, between the beginning of the Machane and the end of the Machane, where the Nachash becomes Mashiach. That there's a relationship between these two things. We're going to come back to all of these themes, please God, in the next week. So far we've discussed that there are some very deep themes here. There are themes of Aaron and the Luchos Abris. There's the themes of seven sevens, and then there's the theme of Yovel, and the theme of Shofar, Tkiya, and Trua. And we've discussed the themes of circles, as they show up many, many, many times throughout Chumash and Tanakh. We'll begin with a minute by taking a look at a Ravid. We'll see what this Ravid is. Yeah, this is just got put the Ravid in here. Says the Ravid. Says the Ravid from, this is the first Ravid, not the Ravid on the Rambam, but the Ravid before that. Says the Ravid on the Gemara in Maseches Tainis that Yericho, Lefishi Yericho Haisa Kamo Tachas Yerushalayim. Yericho is like the opposite of Yerushalayim. There's this deep connection between Yericho and Yerushalayim. Mipnei shehu tchilas kibush Eretz Yisrael. It was the beginning of the conquest. U'kamoshe trumas hadagan tzarich litrom mehareshes. And the same way that when you have your first fruits, your first grains, you have to take a piece of it from the beginning, dedicate the first piece to Hashem. Kain nitrama Eretz Yisrael atzma, the land of Israel was tithed. There was a truma that was taken off. Ubishvil kach hechrima Yehoshua liyos kadosh. Yehoshua enacts a ban that the city of Yericho should be kadosh. Lefichach he kamo Yerushalayim, and in that way Yericho is akin to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim, which is the end of the conquest, Yerushalayim is kadosh. That which is in Yerushalayim belongs to Hashem. Yericho is as well. Yericho is Lashon is reach. It's a whiff. It is a whiff of that which is to come in Yerushalayim. V'hayu nishma'im ba kol hanach diktani kadei sheyagishu b'nei adam sheb'Yericho yesh kamo chen kedusha kamo b'Yerushalayim. The Ravid is commenting here from his Rabbi on the Gemara in Maseches Tamid that says that the sounds of the gates of the Beis Hamikdash could be heard in Yericho. The smell of the incense burning in Yerushalayim could be smelt in Yericho. The sound of the grinding of the spices for the Ketores could be heard in Yericho. All of these things in Yericho. Why? What's the relation between Yericho and Yerushalayim? Says the Ravid, because Yericho is like Yerushalayim, it is Kadosh LaHashem. And Yehoshua says, as we enter into Eretz Yisrael, we are declaring something belonging to Hashem, not for ourselves. These things in the Avodas Beis Hamikdash were heard and felt in Yericho. These are the beginnings of the Avodas. When they opened the gates, that was heard in Yericho. And when they ground the Ketores, this was the sound was heard in Yericho. The beginnings were of all the avodas of the Beis Hamikdash were felt in Yericho. This is the beginning. This is the beginning. Now, in order to begin to conquer Eretz Yisrael, we have sevens, we have shofars, we have yovel, we have circles, we have the connection between the beginning and the end. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we will discuss all of this next week. At least begin to.
Except for the circuits by the chuppah as well, right?